Easy game. Look at that, bro. Ridiculous. Now, welcome back, you beautiful people. It's Kogi here again, this time showing you my leveling guide for my Splitting Steel / Lancing Steel champion. If you guys do not know, a full build guide's already made for this character, talking about an Endgame build guide, and it's down below if you guys want to check that out. If you're more of a veteran player and just want to see how to build a character at Endgame. This is more for the people who want to level up the character as efficiently and as fast as possible and just slam and just breeze through all the acts. You guys can, you know, just easily make this character even if you're a beginner or a veteran. Now, this is really important because certain things are really good early on, like the Impaler node I'll go over in a little bit, versus later on. You do not want that node because it kills your DPS like by an F-ton. But early on, it's absolutely amazing. So I'm gonna give you my quick tips and tricks and how to love the character and what gems to pick up and things like that. So with that topic, on another note, the full price of this build was, for me, when I first built it, around less than 10 exalts. At the current price of exalts sitting at 70C, it was most likely than that. I don't know the exact number because I just buy things as I see fit, because if I need an item and another item is extremely efficient for the price that it is, like the Circle of Guilt, which was like 10 chaos, and it gives me a lot of damage, I'm gonna buy it. For me, it's not really how much it costs, it's how much value does it bring for the cost, right? So on that topic, the most expensive items in the build, because it went up, are the Savior and the Paradoxica. Paradoxica can easily range between like 1 exalt to easily 3 or 4 exalts. I put the link down below for the Paradoxicas that you guys want to buy. It's also in the previous video. And, you know, they're sitting around 100 chaos. And if you want to get a decent one, especially with like good fizz and everything, it can easily cost you 3 or 4 exalts. The Savior's sitting around 2 or 3x. But on that topic, I did test a lot of leveling uniques. And there's a unique you can use at endgame around level 68. That's when you put it on, it just slaps with just that on. It's like a 5C sword, just use 2 of them. I tested this with a Minotaur tier 16 at Awakening level 8. And this is the DPS that I got. So honestly, I was really shocked to see how much DPS these swords can pull out at their price points, like 5C, and they can go up to like 30 chaos whether you get a good roll or not. But I did test out 2 different swords, and you know, I was really shocked. One sword I was considering for endgame for a leveling and, you know, beginning budgets, did F-all damage for single target. The clear was really good, while the other sword did really good in both scenarios. So I was really excited about that. That means you guys can actually play this without investing, you know, half the build 5-6x on the weapons, because it's not needed for the build to function. Right, but before we get into the detail and everything, I do stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at twitch.tv/Kogarai, so you guys can see how I make my builds usually every, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and over a 3-day time period. Because yes, I do complete my builds in 3 days, because that's how much I play. It's only those 3 days, and I build the builds like that, and I'm very efficient in how I play. So if you guys want to see that action, you're more than welcome to join and catch me there. Also have a Discord community. You guys want to ask me any questions, or you can ask them on YouTube comments down below. But Discord is the better place if you want a quicker response. And with that, guys, that pretty much covers that. Let's go right into the leveling guide in Act 1. Welcome back, guys. So now that we're here, my character is in Act 1 with literally no MTX, no gear to show off that he's basically a beginner. Now, on that topic, though, I don't want to overcomplicate the leveling process, because honestly, you can do whatever you want as long as you reach the same end point. I'm just here to show you how to do it the fastest, the most efficient, without having to waste time or, let's say, money in terms of orbital regrets if you mess something up later on, right? Now, I recommend that you guys open up the PoE, and you guys can see here all the skill gems that we're going to do, because essentially the point of leveling is making sure that the skill gem links are okay, that you're picking up all the gem links as you should, and that you're following the tree guideline. My point of basically making this video is to show which one you want to prioritize, which nodes you want to prioritize first, in order for you to smoothen out your leveling process, honestly. Because if you pick up certain things here, it might not be as easy over what I'm going to tell you right now, but as long as you follow this, at the end of the day, you're going to reach the same outcome, right? So keep this in mind. Let's go over here. We're in Act 1. Let's say you're a new character. The beauty about this build is that Splitting Steel, which is a skill that we're using for clear, and eventually, you know, you could use it for single target, and you don't have to use Lancing Steel till later on, but let's just stick with this. Spinning Steel, you get an Act 1 literally right off the bat. And you can just use it from the get-go. And it's awesome because it feels like you're playing the build right from the start. So first things first is a physical skill, and you want to use swords. So the first thing you should be doing is any single rare or magic pieces that drop, pick them up, and you want to sell them. Point being is, still alive, let's say you have no uniques. You want to check here for boots. If you check here for boots, you might find boots with a little bit of movement speed. Unluckily for me, I didn't find any, but you might find boots with movement speed. You want to buy them and then use them because honestly, it makes a very big difference. Same thing you want to do is buy a sword, ideally a foil with attack speed and crit. You see, you used to have 1.5 crit and 6% attack speed. I mean, 6% crit chance. Out there. Right? And you want to get a blacksmith whetstone. Just one is okay. And when you sell a white sword or white melee weapon with a blacksmith whetstone and a rustic sash, a blue one, you get a 41% increase fist damage, like the one I'm using right now. Right? But if you use a rare one, it goes up from 41 to whatever, from 50 to 64. And you can use this, and that's basically use, you know, dual-wielding swords and use your leveling swords. And then every single time that you reach a new act, you can buy better swords, or as you level, they change their swords to higher level ones. And just do the same process, upgrade them. You can even go ahead and, you know, get Augs and Alchem, or Algum, I guess is the best way to say it. Whatever you guys can see. And, you know, you might get lucky, you might get some crit chance, you might get some attack speed, whatever the case may be. This is okay for now, right? And as you go, just progress through all the acts, do the same thing, rinse and repeats. Find any rares that are useful, use them. Any, you know, chest pieces, whatever, pick them up and use them. Things like that. Good note is try to buy some iron rings from her, from your Nessa or whatever vendor. It gives you a lot of damage early on, and it should make a very substantial difference when you don't have any flat damage. On top of that, buy any rustic sash. Like, let's say we just use this one, because leveling belts are kind of from level 1 not really existence other than Stygian Vise, and that's a different topic. I don't want to get to that because it's very specific, right? And you want to use those things like that. The damage doesn't matter, and everything else you basically just find as you go, and you just level from there. This is if you have no uniques whatsoever. But if you do have uniques, let's go right into that very quickly. Obviously, Tabula Rasa, 6 link, level 1, Gold Rim, the gold standard for res. If you have Wanderlust boots, you want to use Wanderlust boots for movement speed. But if you have a little bit of currency like I do, 7 link steps go a very long way. I'm gonna put that in just to, you know, speed up the process. As for a leveling unique, you can use Red Beak and then combine it with another sword, or just dual Red Beak, whatever the case may be. I only have one. Doesn't really matter. You're gonna eventually replace it with a Princess Saver at level 10. So what I like to do is I like to actually hold on to my items on the side here. You can see. That way I know eventually I'm gonna upgrade into it. Rings, dual wield black heart rings. For your amulet, you're going to use Arutiki because it's honestly just one thing you can use that's useful. It doesn't really matter. Eventually, you want to upgrade to either a Curry Ward or the replica version. The replica version does still work because the skill is AoE, and we're going to need that intelligence more than the strength. So I recommend just saving to on the side the replica version if you have it. If you have it, if you're not playing in heist, then, you know, it doesn't matter. Use the other one and just leave it there. That way in level 5 you can immediately equip it. Obviously, use your Quicksilvers the minute you hit the level requirement, 3 to 6, things like that. Oh, and one more thing, the belts, or not the belt, the gloves you want to use is Loctanio Caress. They're amazing with attack speed and a little bit of life. They reduce your mana, but it's not that big of a deal. And it's basically what you're going to use for a very, very long time. And eventually, I see here I have other things I would like to upgrade to as you see fit. But that's enough for now in Act 1. Now, Act 1, as you progress through all the acts, you're going to get skill gems. See, in example, Prisoner Gate, you get some skill gems. You usually get the moving skill gems like Leap Slam and things like that. And Ravel's Caverns, you get the rest of them. You eventually come back to Act 1 from Act 2. That's why, even though she's a boss, she gives you skill gems. From here, the skill gems that we're going to need, you can search here. The first ones you're going to pick up is, of course, Splitting Steel and Chance to Bleed. Those are essentially going to be the first thing. So I'm going to put it here. Where's the other one? Chance to Bleed. I think I removed this. Let's buy another one. And that should carry you at the beginning until you get the rest of them. As you continue to buff up, eventually you're going to get Ancestor Protector. Gives you a lot of attack speed, and we do use it at the end game. So start using it. Like a little totem for attack speed. You keep moving on. Right, we do have Steel Skin right here. Steel Skin is a skill that gives you armor, and it's instant, so you can actually put it on your movement skill when a proc, whatever the cooldown comes down. Gives you a defensive buff, and it makes it hard, much less likely to die when you're leveling. If you die with this, play smarter, basically. So we're not going to be using that for endgame, just for leveling, right? Certain things you just want to use for leveling, things like that. On top of that, we do get precision, so let's use precision. Eventually, you get main, which is another link. On top of that, you also get LMP, which is another link you could use. So we get more projectiles. You get a Enduring Cry down here, right? And you eventually get Dash and Leap Slam. Dash is what you want to use initially. And then you want to pick up a Leap Slam and just leave it there. And then eventually you're going to, what do you call it? Spec out of that, out of the dash, and just use Leap Slam only. See, Leap Slam is right here. Right, so I can use Leap Slam. You can level it up, doesn't really matter. We don't care about the damage we put on the side. So we're waiting for Leap Slam until Act 2 is where we get faster attacks.
Take care.
Right, so it's pretty much the gist of that. We also have Vitality, but Vitality, just grab a level 1, don't level it. And it only matters really once you get a Watcher's Eye. So you can kind of just ignore it until you get the Watcher's Eye in Endgame and then come back here and buy a level 1 Vitality. Does not matter. Right, so I'll delete it for now because we're not going to use it. Once you get to Act 2. Right, in Act 2 you can go ahead and upgrade your weapons if you want to. In here, you really want to pick up Blood Rage is your, your best in slot attack speed and your main source of leech. It's right there. Next one is Herald of Purity, a main aura. Immediately use it. You could use Herald of Ice and Fire and things like that, but since the skill itself impales, all the elemental damage cannot impale. No point in doing so. And then of course you can use Flesh and Stone. At this point, use both Herald of Purity and Flesh and Stone as auras on top of your Precision. Precision will drop later, but for now you have this spot, so you might as well use it. As for your links, you have Vicious Projectiles, which you can meet another link. Use that. You have your faster attacks now for your Leap Slam, so you can go ahead and remove Dash or leave it. You can actually use both, whatever the case may be, whichever you like both. And now you can link your Leap Slam with Dash. Let's put it here, and let's get my Leap Slam right there. Now it's linked, so now you have a faster Leap Slam. And everything else we basically cannot really use, right? And from there on, we just continue. You have your auras, right? And let's move on. And in Act 2, make sure you do your, of course, your trials and all those specific spots and everything. As for your bandits, here, kill this bandit, which is the, I forget his name, the one in the Broken Bridge. Then kill Oak, and then you want to help the Western Forest and Allura, and she'll give you basically the resistances, mana, and crit multi. Since it's a crit build, very, very nice. Highly recommend it. Right, now, quick topic, Western Forest, when you go down this path, right, you keep going down this path, all the way down, you're eventually going to get to a point where, let's go all the way down, you're going to fight a guy, and he drops a little bit of an emblem, a little emblem, and this emblem, right, you put it here, and this opens a little gate, and this basically is Act 1. When you go into this gate and use a portal, right, you get to Act 1, it's like a little shortcut. You come here, this guy will give you your skill points, and then you can get those gems that Merveil unlocked for you. Kind of annoying, but, it is what it is. So, with that out of the way, Act 2 is very simple in terms of gems. You get your basically auras, Blood Rage, and things like that. Moving on to Act 3. Right, the area of this thing is like around level 23, level 25, level 26. And here's where you can start using some really interesting uniques. At this point, right, you should be able to use for a belt. You should have gone through a Worm's Molt if you have one. It's not really important. It just helps you with intelligence if you need the stats. It does not really matter. But the next belt at level 20 is the Belt of Deceiver. And it's actually a very viable endgame belt until you get a Stygian Vice. It gives you fizz damage, life, and res. And if you actually get a cheap corrupted one with resistances, this belt also has 29% to all resistances. I did use this until level 85. It worked out immensely. I love it to death. So if you can use this, use it. I highly recommend it. As for your swords, eventually you want to go and then start using things like, where is it? Like Kishu's Blade. You can use that. Or, you just use the same method with the recipe. On top of that, we also have the Restless Passion. I believe it's level 43. Never mind, don't use that. And that's basically it. You have Lakishus, and at that point, you still can use Princess Saber. So those are the two swords I would recommend. You just keep rolling with that. And that's pretty good. Or just use a blue, blue thing with the recipe. And you're kind of good to there. As for rings, this is very, very important. In order to help sustain your mana, things you want to consider is buying a practice, maybe 2 if you want to. 1 practice should be good enough, and it lowers your mana, gives you a bunch of mana regen. And this actually fixes all your mana problems. Until then, you kind of have to use the mana pot. The other thing you can do is anoint this node very cheaply. It costs 1 teal, 1 purple, 1 black. It's like literally 4 chaos. Anoint it on basically your free ward. If I swap that out, like I do here. This one has it. This one has like this is exactly this. This one has Essence Sap, which is right there. I was using it, but the replica version is also viable. You want to anoint it there. So if you have the oils already and it's not your first character, go ahead and do this, and it should help you get basically all the mana problems out of the way, so you don't have to use a mana pot. Otherwise, just use a mana pot if this is your first character. So Act 3 is a little bit confusing because she only gives you, you see, we have basically, let's say 1, 2, 3 rows of gems. You do not get this third row of gem until you go into the Imperial Gardens and you go into the library, and there's a quest there. You talk to the lady. She gives you, I'm assuming she's a lady still, so I don't know if it's a guy or a lady. Either way, you have to find this little candle. You open a candle, you go into this like side area. It gives you, you have to find these golden pages. You come back and she unlocks new gems plus all previous gems. So what happens then is when you unlock that, you go back to Clarissa, and now she has this bottom row. So from here, you want to get your sniper's mark, which I should have already here. So yeah, your sniper's mark, and using this thing, it's like a curse, and you're really not going to use it until Act 4, where you get Arcanist Brand to automate the casting for you. But you want to level it up because it's a very big deal in damage. On top of that, you do have Pride somewhere around here. There it is. You're not going to be able to fit this in, so I don't recommend it. Just level it up. So recommend, if you have other weapons that you would buy from the vendor, just socket it in there and level it up with the rest of your characters. Right? Or gems, I mean. And that's very helpful. And then you obviously want to pick up Dread Banner. So at this point, your aura should be Herald of Purity, Flesh and Stone, Dread Banner. That's a total of 25, which is 50, 60%. And then you can use the Precision. Just don't level up too high because it's very mana hungry initially. And that should be good enough. Just level up your Pride until later on you can fix your mana reservation basing off the knowledge I gave you on my previous build guide. Continue on here. I don't believe there's anything here except for, boom, bada beam, we get Lancing Steel. Again, we don't need to use Lancing Steel at all for clear, and bosses die fast enough with Splitting Steel, so you don't need to use this. Just level it up, and then when endgame comes around, you start using it. So again, put it in the back burner and level it up using your other weapon slots or whatever empty slots you have open. And then like that. Now, once you do library, these gems unlock. Now you have Slower Projectiles, which is right here as a possible gem link. Top of that, let's see what else we have here. Impale, probably the most important gem you're going to use in the build. It gives you Impale chance, and it's super, super important. And then we have Second Wind. Second Wind is just going to go with your Enduring Cry. So your Enduring Cry here, you can put it here. At this point, if you want, you can remove Dash if Leap Slam is fast enough for you. Keep it if you want. So there's your Precision, Second Wind linked with Enduring Cry. Things like that. Make sure you don't link any support gems to your auras, because your auras get more expensive in terms of mana. So here then, I would drop, you know, at this point, leave LMP, take out Chance to Bleed, put Impale, Maim is fine. And it's your choice if you want to remove Rage or keep the Rage in order to just move faster, because Rage gives you movement speed. Or, you know, you can take that out and start using Slower Projectiles. It is really up to you whether you have enough damage or not. But in this scenario, you should be leveling up Slower Projectiles either way, because it is one of your main links in Endgame. Right, and that pretty much covers the gem links there. Moving on to Act 4. By Act 4, you really basically have all the gems needed to start leveling.
Yes.
All of them, except for, of course, the gems that don't drop: Added Chaos, Enlightened, Empower, things like that. In this case, we use Enlightened, but that's an endgame item you can buy once you have the currency in endgame. From here, the only things you're going to buy is an Ice Golem, right, which is right here. So you want to buy an Ice Golem and a Mortal Call and your Cast and Damage Taken. So that's basically your Cast and Damage Taken loop. I put it like on my weapon, and you don't have to use it now. Just level up the gems up to the level requirement in the PoB, because you don't want to max them out. Due to the way that Cast and Damage Taken works, you know, that has to be the same level as the Cast and Damage Taken gem, otherwise it won't work. So that's pretty much that. And here, you don't want to pick up GMP, you actually want to pick up Fork. And if you notice, we don't actually get Fork because it's just not part of our kit. It's another character that gets it, like Ranger and Assassin. However, I do have a Fork that I personally have. So you would drop the lesser multiple projectiles, get rid of it. You don't need those projectiles.
Yes. And
use your Fork. So at this point, it should be Spitting Steel, Impale, Maim, Fork, Vicious, and then Slower Proj. And it's pretty much what you really want to do. But then you do have one more gem that I completely forgot to talk about, which is Brutality. Brutality is probably your best in slot gem for damage.
Take care.
And this one honestly should replace Slower Projectiles, because it's actually your weakest link. So then now, Splitting Steel, Fork, Vicious, Brutality, Maim, and Impale. This is going to be basically your link for the rest of the game. Literally. The only time you swap this out is when you want to use, right here, Lancing Steel. For Lancing Steel, you swap out Splitting for Lancing, and then Slower for Fork. And it's your single target setup, but you don't really need it until endgame, so just level up the gems, right, until you really start needing that damage. Now, you're in Act 4, you basically get all the gems, right? You really want to make sure that you hit this point, and you start looking at all the things that you're missing, right? You're missing Arcanist Brand, right, because we don't get it. We have both of these already. We have Pride, we have Maim, we have Flintstone. Enlighten you have to buy. We have Mortal Call, we have all this. Police Slam Protect, we have all that. Dread Banner Second Withering Cry, we have all that. And we have all this. So it seems like what we're missing is basically just, other than Enlightened, we're missing Arcanist Brand. And of course, you'd be missing Fork too. But you can also just buy it. It's like an ALK. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal. But the Arcanist Brand and the... what do you call it? The other one gem can be gotten actually in Act 6, where they give you every single gem, except for, of course, Enlightened, Added Chaos, things like that. Now, Act 4, before we move on to Act 6, it's on level 40 area. By this point, you should be able to use, you know, your other sword, like the Restless Passion works. Keep the Lakeisha's Blade is good enough, honestly, the way that it is. Everything else, honestly, basically stays the same. You can swap out the Black Heart ring for a rare ring with a little bit of fizz, things like... something like this has fizz live. It's a level 55 ring, but you might find something very, very cheap for a low level. It's kind of crazy how good rings can be at a low level. Like right here, level 40. Has good res, good life, and cold damage. If that was fizz instead, it'd be pretty freaking good. Things like that. You may start considering dropping the gloves for rare gloves of life, since it reduces your mana cost. It's up to you. Nothing really changes. And then you can always go to the vendor and upgrade your weapons. Moving on, let's go back to Act 6. Now in Act 6, right here, you're going to talk to this lady, Lily Roth. She's going to be sitting all the way over here in this little corner. You do the quest. You have to go into this annoying little area on the side, which is basically where you start off in Act 1. You got to kill every single monster in there. There has to be none remaining. Kill the boss. It's very annoying. You sometimes have like one remaining zombie. You have to look for it. And she will eventually come back here when you finish the quest, and she's selling you every single gem. So here is basically where you got to buy your Arcanist Brand. Boom, bada, when it's Arcane Cloak. The support gem, Arcanist Brand. Leave it level 1 because it doesn't really matter. You might not have the item requirement. That's why I recommend the replica version. And the other thing you probably would need, I already have it, so I'm not going to buy it, but it's the Fork gem since you didn't get an Act 4. You would buy it there. And it's basically where the remaining gems are, right? The only problem is here is that they're only a level 1, while if you buy from the other vendors, they level up with you, so those gems will be at a higher level. It's pretty much that simple. Now, in terms of things to do in terms of your skill tree, what you should be looking for is, while leveling in Act 1, pick up these nodes over here. Rush Lord of Steel if you have one. Lord of Steel is absolutely massive. Let me tell you why. Let's go into an area like Act 6. It's actually perfect at Twilight Strand. Right, the weapons I'm using, the links I'm using should be good enough either way to just one-shot everything. So the way that the skill works is you shoot a little needle, right? During right here,
I can't do this just yet.
Right, and it shoots out little projectiles after that. What ends up happening is Call of Steel makes you recharge all these shards back, because when you lose all your charges, you know, they're dying from the projectiles. Now it just shoots a needle and it doesn't explode anymore. It's incredibly bad. So you have to use Call of Steel to recharge it. The problem with this, without this damn jewel, look how slow it is. It is so slow. Honestly, it's good enough for leveling, but you really want the Call of Steel to make it, oh my god, so smooth. So, but I don't know how much these cost, because you really want AoE, Impale effect, and especially use speed. After that, what you really want to prioritize, go to the left here, get Call of Arms. So your Enduring Cry from Act 1 is on walk and it's permanent. You drop your Steel Skin for this and get the life node here. Then you want to rush Impaler. As you guys can see here, it's on my POB down here, but when you go to mid-game tree, it's not there anymore. Reason being, what ends up happening is Call of Steel rips out the number of impales on the enemy. When you hit one time, you inflict one impale, and the damage from this Call of Steel is based off the damage of one impale. However, with the Impaler, that one hit will now do 5 impales, because it's 4 additional, the main base, 4 additional 5. Now your Call of Steel is doing one hit 5 times the damage. It means you can use one-shot things like crazy and just clear everything. It's insane, but then you can't impale for another 4 seconds, so your single target really takes a hit. So by the time you have a lot of damage, maybe like even Act 6, Act 7, Act 8, drop it. Drop it. Use it for like Act 1 to 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. But once you have like a good unique for 7 and 8, drop this as soon as possible, because it does lower your damage, and by that point you should have enough damage anyways. And after that, you want to rush Point Blank. And of course, you can get Iron Grip on the way there. It's only 1 point, and your strength applies to your projectile damage. Nice damage boost, nothing crazy though. And Point Blank is probably your biggest DPS boost straight out of the box. 30% more damage when you're up close and personal. Free, dude. It's freaking free. Right. So for that point, the rest of the tree is basically simple. Get the life over here, get the accuracy, and this is really good for dexterity intelligence. You're going to need it. Life and accuracy. Now, for your ascendancy, you really want to pick up Master of Metal first with this one node. You're good to go, and like you do a lot of damage in Act 3 once you do all your labs. Moving on to the second tree, which is mid-game tree. This is basically after killing Katava, around there. Level 60 something, 70. We fill out the rest of the areas on the right, so we get more accuracy, you get the life, you get the accuracy crit, and you get the mana leech node. With this, maybe you're okay dropping the practices, maybe you're okay dropping the essence sap as your anointment. Whatever the case may be, test it out, use this one node, and if it's good enough, just use that and drop everything else. Otherwise, keep using the things you were using before, practice, mana flask, things like that. Right? On the left, nothing really changes. Nothing really changes. And then endgame tree comes around. Actually, before that, our ascendancy. You can either go inspirational for the movement speed, but honestly, you're not going to really fit all the auras until you buy your endgame gear, like the ring, Circle of Guilt, which is only like 10 chaos. So I recommend just going Fortify so you don't die a lot. And you have a lot of tankiness from this. That's pretty much it. You get this around, I would say, Act 7, 8, and in Act 10, you get Fortitude or Fortify, or maybe a little bit into maps. And then eventually, when you get to Uber Elder endgame, not Uber Elder, Uber Izaro, Uber Lab, you get inspirational. And this is where you start worrying about your mana reservation problems, and that's where you look at my other video linked down below for that. And here in this case scenario, we fill out the rest of the life here. And most importantly, I actually recommend going for the crit first. Get Fatal Blade and get Heartseeker, because if you have a savior, you need that crit chance ASAP. And even if you don't have Heartseeker, your crit chance probably sucks anyway. Pick it up, you're gonna need it, especially without a Bottle of Faith. And then you can focus on getting, like, you know, Swagger for the block and all these other nodes, and, you know, the Brutal Blade for more block and things like that. You fill those out. So that way you're a tanky tank
Can't
boy.
do this just yet.
I pretty much covered the tree. There's no cluster jewels. It's actually incredibly simple. Now, if you're wondering, you know, this is what you're using for leveling. You continue on. Eventually, once you hit like Act 10, let's say like Act 9. Let's do Act 9, right? What weapons you're going to be using? It's the level 61 area, level 61. It might not be high enough, but you want to start considering using things like Ichimonjis. Ichimonjis are really great at level 58. However, they're not the weapons I recommend. I tried them out. Those are the swords that I tested out for DPS at the end game. They're terrible. Don't use it. Single target is atrocious, but clear is okay. So recommend to use it while mapping. Not bad. The other option, you can also use the prismatic on your offhand. Put 3 greens on it so you have a lot of attack speed. So you probably just, you know, boom, 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 boom. A lot of attack speed. But your crit chance really takes a hit, so just let you know. But when you hit level 60, which is around Act 9, I recommend getting a Skava with a prismatic, or if anything even better, dueling these. These range from 5 to 30 C depending on the roll. They go up to over 300 PDPS with good crit, and you're going to be using 2 reds and 1 green. So it's like, what is that? A lot of Leech of Life. Who cares? But you get 20 crit multi. I wish I could just put all green for, you know, 30 crit multi, but I have certain gems that only fit there. And these swords are actually the sword that I used to kill the Minotaur that you saw in the beginning of the video, and it's good enough, and they're 5 chaos. So until then, you use this until you get your other things. And also on that note, you can get a sacrificial garb like this without the hunter influence and the crit, obviously, by buying the sacrifice card. It's a 6-link sacrificial garb. It literally costs 2 C per card. So with 8 chaos recipes, which you can literally do in like using tier 1 maps, you get a 6-link sacrificial garb. And at this point, just slam them with Aux until you get like life and res. Or if you have a bunch of essences from Heist, slam greed essences or, you know, resistances essences until you get something decent. And, you know, I actually crafted a pretty good tri-res life 6-link, and I sold it for like, you know, 2x or something like that, and it was really easy to do. So that pretty much covers it, guys. At this point, just remember to place rares where you see fit. Like if you need resistances, because as you lose resistances from fighting in Act 5 Katava, you lose minus 30 res. In Act 10, you lose another 30 res. So do not go into maps with no resistance. Prioritize resistance before damage. Always. If you die, you can't clear, and you're gonna hate your life. So keep that in mind. And if you want to see how this build stacks up and all the gear you need to do, then look at the endgame tree down below. So that, guys, that pretty much covers the entire leveling process. In summary, basically by Act 4, you should have all your gems, and if you miss anything by Act 6, when you get that quest, you get the rest of your gems. Follow the POB as close as possible. You know, using the gems that are listed there. Rush the jewel if you have the jewel. Rush the Enduring Cry node, which is Call to Arms when you have Enduring Cry level 1, or Act 1, I mean. Rush the Impaler, and then after that, straight up just rush point blank, and then the rest of it you fill out as you go, the life and the crit chance. And that's pretty much the gist of the build. There's nothing complicated. There's no cluster jewels. There's nothing really crazy like that to make it expensive. And for your sword, just use 2 Scavas. Like you saw at the beginning of the video, it killed Minotaur, absolutely no problem. And the build has enough defenses where it just didn't give a crap about all the damage that I was taking, despite the fact that my DPS was lower than it was in, you know, my endgame build. But again, if you guys want to see the full detailed endgame build and how to like kind of max it to the point that you do crazy DPS, the link is down below. Watch it. It's basically freaking amazing. I absolutely love it. Just built to death. I'm never going to delete it. I have all my gear. I'll move it around, but I won't delete it. Know that. Please let me know of anything I can improve upon. I wanted to cover as much information as possible, and I wanted to make this video 15 minutes long, but holy hell, how much do I talk? I apologize for the length, but if it helped you out, any other detail, you know, I have to put it in there for that person who needs it. So I apologize. But with that, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please let me know what you think. Catch you around in the next informative video or build guide, and catch you later.